Hey guys, welcome to the deck profile. I'm going to be giving you my 7-0 branded Gate Guardian list from my locals yesterday. But before I get into anything, I'm going to go over my matchups real quick, just to give you an idea of what I was playing against. Match 1 was against ABC Adventure, and that was a 2-0. Match 2 was branded, that was also a 2-0. Match 3 was against Striker, and that was a 2-0. Dragoon and Water and Thunder putting up 3 spell and trap negates, and also Dragoon being an untargetable body is really hard for them to out. Match 4 was against Heroes. The hero player, he bricked really hard game 1, so I ended up just OTKing him. And then game 2, I think he bricked again, which was really unfortunate. Match 5 was against another Striker. That match, I actually lost a game. We went to game 3. So 2-1. And going into game 2, I had everything I needed, but he had all of the answers to what I was trying to do. So he ashed the branded fusion, ended up judgmenting the Gate Guardian of Water and Thunder. And after that, I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of tough. Pretty much all I had left was Ecclesia plays with Punishment and Fuller, but that wasn't enough to pull it through because once he started the looping engage, it was just over, and I just decided to go to game 3. And in game 3, I just set up the board. He ended up opening evenly Widow Anchor droplets, and I had to force all of my negates through there, which was fine. I just ended up keeping the Dragoon, and he didn't have anything else after that, so he just set one past. Match 6 was against Sword Soul. That was also a 2-0. And match 7 was against Striker again, and that was also a 2-0. The deck just goes really hard against Striker. It's really tough for them to out the 2 spell and trap negates as well as the Dragoon. Enough about the rounds and everything. We can go ahead and get into the deck profile now. So I'm going to start off with the main deck. I am running 43 cards, I believe. I think it might be 44. I'm pretty sure it's 44. I'm running 2 Sangha of the Thunder, as well as 2 Suijin and 2 Kazejin. They're not necessarily bricks because you want to see them, and there are some nice interactions you can do with them, especially with cards like Sacred Sword, where you get to banish and then draw 2, but you don't want to see like a bunch of these in your hand, and so usually you end up using them as discard fodder. 3 Heavy Tank. I run 5 dedicated normal summons. Heavy Tank is really good. Going second for any of my matches, if I opened this as well as the field spell, popping a monster my opponent controls would force them to interact with this, and that would give me 1 less interaction to deal with, so I could save my other cards and just use this as bait. 3 Shadow Ghoul. Shadow Ghoul is really good because it's obviously, it just searches the field spell, but it has another effect where you can banish it from the graveyard while you control a Wall Labyrinth and destroy a monster your opponent controls whenever that monster battles. This is all for the Gate Guardian monster package, by the way. I'm running 1 Fuller Delise and 1 Ecclesia. This isn't the full Dogmatica package. I'm running like Nadirs and stuff as well. These were really good though. If my branded fusion got ashed, usually what I'd end up doing is activate Nadir Servant, sending App Cologne, adding the Ecclesia, and then special the Ecclesia, add the Fuller, and App Cologne would grab me the Schism that I could use to make Winda on my opponent's turn, and then in rare cases banish one of their monsters. 2 Aluber. I didn't want to run 3 because I feel like 3 is kind of cloggy. Doesn't really help because you end up opening a lot of multiples of stuff. So for example, you'll open a hand of like Aluber, branded fusion, just like a bunch of your branded stuff, and you kind of want to minimize that without hurting the consistency of the deck too much, so I'm only playing 2 Aluber. I like the 2 Aluber. Plus seeing this with Heavy Tank is just kind of like it's like a double-edged sword. I'd rather see branded opening to summon this. 2 Fallen of Albaz. I normal summoned this twice yesterday, and both times I normal summoned it, it resolved. Making that Mirror Jade immediately puts a lot of pressure on the board. Also running 1 Beast as part of the Shadal package. This is a great discard off of opening because opening doesn't discard for cost, and so you get the effect of Beast to draw 1 and replace the card that you lost in your hand. I'm also running a Hex Sealed Fusion for various targets in the extra deck. Onto the spells. I'm running 3 Branded Opening. I love this card. I love it so much. The protection effect actually saved me in 1 game from access code, which was beautiful. 3 Nadir Servant. You can run 2 of this, but the reason I'm running 3 is because the Winda package in here is so impactful. It's it will force your opponent to have to account for dealing with the schism. It's also just a good for breaking boards and stuff too. I've sent the Tis off of it a few times and it was very helpful. 3 Branded Fusion, great card. You can use it to send the Sangha of the Thunder as well, because it's a light, and so it helps you dump materials in order to contact fuse. 3 Fusion Deployment, this just gets out bodies. Going second, if you activate this and your opponent doesn't know that you're on Branded, which I mean, okay, to be fair, right? If they play Fusion Deployment, they're almost always unbranded. However, nobody ever negated this when I used it. And so summoning Albaz going second is amazing because it forces a reaction. And if they don't have anything to stop it, they lose stuff. 3 Labyrinth Wall Shadow. This card's great. Placing the pieces from your hand deck banished is really good, and it's also not once per turn. Plus the battle effect and the effect where your opponent can't attack except for with level 5 or higher monsters actually helped a lot, especially against Striker, because they can't go Hayate battle phase while this is on the field. They just can't, because Hayate is not a level 5 or higher monster. 2 Sacred Sword. This card came in clutch a lot, actually. There was a game where I activated Sacred Sword to banish and draw 2, and my opponent just kind of stared at me like, are you kidding me? You're gonna make me choose? They were like, so either I stop this or I stop Branded Fusion. And they opted to wait, and the cards I drew were insane. It was, I drew into Branded in Red and the Dear Servant, and my hand was already loaded, and so was my graveyard. So I was able to just do the Branded Fusion anyway, pretty much. I did Albion, or not Albion, excuse me. I made a Lubellion, and then made Mirror Jade that way, with Branded in Red. 2 Double Attack. This card is not amazing, but I like discarding it in order to get its grave effect for recursion. Especially making Dragoon and having this in hand. Discarding this, you can just banish it during your next turn, get something from banished or deck or whatever. 1 Branded in Red. After playing it yesterday, I was contemplating cutting this card before the tournament started, but after the tournament, I had a change of heart, because this card saved me in a lot of instances where my opponent would try to stop the Albion, and I would chain Branded in Red to do it anyway. So that, like, Imperm would fizzle, Valor would fizzle. 1 Riryoku Guardian. I don't think I ever actually got to use the effect, like the activation effect. I only ever used the Graveyard effect because I always kept discarding it. 1 Reasoning. This is just like a flex spot. You don't need this. I just put it in here because I thought it'd be funny. And then Traps, 1 Shaddoll Schism, 1 Dogmatica Punishment. And that's the main deck. For my extra deck, I'm only running 1 Gate Guardians combined. The reason is because I felt like having 2 of this didn't really do a whole lot, because you weren't making this most of the time, and you really only need 1, because once this dies, it recurs. So it's like, there's really no point in having more than 1. And this is only for my build. If you're playing like Pure, definitely run like 2 of this. But in this build in particular, I found that running 1 was the best thing I could do. Space is also kind of tight in the extra deck, so 2 Thunder and Wind. This card's okay. It just searches the spells. 2 Wind and Water. This card was the best card on my field most of the time besides Dragoon, because having this on the field with, like, say, a Winda, an Ecclesia, and a Fuller in hand with, like, Mirror Jade or Dragoon or something is extremely powerful, because they try to go, oh, I'm gonna imperm your Winda. Okay, negate. 1 Mirror Jade. There's a card in here that I'm contemplating on cutting and putting in a second Mirror Jade. Every time Mirror Jade hit the board, it got played around a lot. People would take it, they would banish it, return it to the extra deck, and every time that happened, I kept just having to chain it anyway just to get some value off of it by sending Albion, so that I would get something in phase. Speaking of which, 2 Albion. I'm not running the new Albion, I am running the Shaddoll package, and it's only because I don't have the new Albion. If you want to run the new Albion, you can do it, it's perfectly fine. I do think I like the Shaddoll package more though, because the Beast and the Schism give you more interaction, and they're better to open with things like Branded Opening. Whereas if you open Jowgen, Jowgen does nothing in your hand. It just does absolutely nothing in your hand, even if you discard it. So you go branded opening, discard Jowgen, you're like, okay, whatever. But discarding Beast is great. One Lubellion, this card's fine. I very rarely made it. The only times I ever made it was late in games. I mostly ended up making Albion. There were some rare instances where I got Lancia'd and I would make Lubellion to shuffle instead of banish, just so I'd have an in board. One Masquerade, this is the card I'm thinking of cutting for another Mirror Jade or something, because I made this card a single time and it did essentially nothing. It got Widow Anchored after dealing 1,200 damage, and after that it just kept leaving the board and coming back and then leaving the board and coming back, and it just did nothing. One Titanical Ad because Dogmatica package obviously, but you can also OTK with this thing. One Dragoon. Dragoon is just too powerful not to run. An App Cologne, a Winda. These were great. Every time I summoned Winda, I won. There was not a single game where I summoned Winda and my opponent was like, cool Winda, bro, and then they just get through it anyway. And one Natis. This card was great going second. I love this card. Just as a one of, I wouldn't run more than one. Now, for my side deck, I was running 3 Drill and Lockbird. This, I'm not even joking, I only sided this and another card in my side deck the entire day. Most of my games I didn't even side, and if you noticed, I had 0 hand traps, 0 board breakers. It's just my side deck, just every time I looked at my side deck going into games 2 and sometimes 3, everything I looked at, I was like, this is not really going to help me a whole lot. I just need the gas to get through the board, not exactly like the board breakers. Because if I open board breakers, that's great. But if my hand is bad, then I'm not doing anything. Like, I can sit there and I can Dark Ruler all day, but it doesn't matter if I can't combo, right? And I knew that with a lot of the matchups I had, I could play through their boards because I knew they weren't going to set up too much for me to not have anything. So I did Droll for some matchups, just to see how it would go. I didn't see it a single time. I didn't see it at all. But yeah, I'm running the 3 Dark Ruler, 2 Twin Twisters, and 1 Harpy's Feather Duster for back row, because back row is kind of difficult for this deck. Not necessarily Sky Striker, because they're kind of easy to deal with your protection, with your Gate Guardian protection bodies, and your floating. It's mostly like Trap Tricks. Trap Tricks kind of hurts. Labyrinth hurts a lot, so these were kind of just answers to those decks. 3 Anti-Spell. This was the only other card I sided in all day, and it was against Sky Striker. I saw it once, and I had exactly Dragoon, Water, and Wind, the fusion, Ecclesia Flare in hand, and Punishment set. And I also had the Anti-Spell. And I told him straight up, I said, you are not breaking this board, I promise you right now. You might as well concede. And he didn't believe me. So he drew for turn, and I went, okay, activate Anti-Spell, standby, or in draw phase, excuse me. And he said, oh, Anti-Spell in draw phase? What? Are you serious? I said, yeah. I told you you're not breaking this board. And he chained Droplet and sent a Droll and another spell. And he negated my Dragoon and my Spell Trap negate. I was like, okay, cool. He set 2 past. I was like, sick. I'm the OTK the fuck out of you. And then the last card I'm running is Deep Barrier. 3 Deep Barrier. This card in theory is really good, but there was never a game I used it in because every single matchup I had, I was confident that I could just pull through them without having the side. Also, I ended up going second for a lot of my games. I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. Again, if you want to see more combos, if you want a video about it, let me know in the comments. And thank you guys again. It'd be a big help if you guys subscribe to the channel. You can check out my Twitch. I play games, I talk about like scary stories, all that kind of stuff. Also, next video is going to be about ghost stories that I myself have been through, as well as some of my friends. So if you guys are interested in that, again, drop a subscribe, it'd help me out. And I'll see you guys later. Thank you.